Hello, everyone, and welcome to Policy Central, your one stop destination for all things policy. First of all, a very happy new year. A new year comes with new resolutions, new promises, new dreams, and new ambitions. It's a perfect time to look back on what a year 2022 has been for India and her citizens. We're also marking the 1 year of the Russia Ukraine war, which brought in itself with huge resource shortage, trade issues, food grain issues, energy, currencies, and a whole game of diplomacy in the global level. When we talk about economy and the idea of shortage or resources and trade, currencies, inflation, GDP, employment, a lot of things come into picture.
In fact, India hit a 8-year high inflation point in 2022. But very interestingly, if we notice that the economic activity in India did not really slow down. Like we anticipated a major slump, but that did not happen. Economic activity was still going on in all sectors, in agriculture, in rural, in trade, everything. So there were some policies, that were the backbone of this moderate success, we could if we could call that. So these policies were like Make in India initiative, the Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative, where India has changed the position or is trying to change the position of being the importer to becoming the exporter of the world. We are now aiming to becoming the manufacturing hub of the world, and we're kind of successfully going there with other schemes like the ODOP scheme, which means the one district one product scheme. It basically is a very it's a manufacturing oriented scheme which aims into bringing in all the districts of the country and identify one product specific to that place and make it an export worthy good. And and very smartly, our Prime Minister in the G20 conclusion in Bali, he gifted 20 different products to 20 leaders from the different countries, and all of them were chosen from the ODOP list.
Also, just to add on to that, so we're the whole idea of one district, one product, and we're talking about unique exporting, becoming an exporter, right? There's this international project that's still on in the talks, but globally we are facing a lot of crisis with respect to food, grains, and agriculture, and countries like UAE and all are trying to look for investment sources where they want a reliable global partner when it comes to food grain supply. And interestingly, India has come up with this contract with UAE and Israel, and Israel has the best of the technologies. Something's always like cooking up there. So Israel supporting us with technology, while UAE is supporting us with the funds,
Yeah.
and India has identified a few districts which will be the food basket for UAE and rest of the world. In fact, we're setting up food processing units, farming units, where we have food grains and we package them. We have crops, and these are artificially generated or naturally induced. But the idea is that we are not looking at self sufficiency or self reliable, just like being feeding enough for yourself, but more in terms of how can you provide for others, how can you
Yeah.
nurture, and that will really change India's
Position
position
globally.
and how we also look at policies, right?
Yeah. Also adding to that, like the scheme that we talked about, ODOP, the policy, there's a parallel scheme. ODOP is a very domestic thing. There's a parallel policy run which is called the DEH, District as Export Hubs. So both of these work on a very similar principle
Yeah.
of boosting exports. The only so this year the India's foreign trade policy had one major agenda, that was boost India's exports. That is it, and they kind of successfully did that by boosting rural entrepreneurship. That was the only way around that. And a very small example of that, if you want to take it, is in J&K. So there are some districts, backward districts, Badarwa, Doda, mostly troubled with militancy, and very low agriculture output. So, but there's a high growth of lavender there, and it was never utilized. So, lavender was recognized as a product, and a whole revolution was started. It's called the Purple Revolution, and people have benefited like to five folds. They've increased their revenues by five folds, and that is a good change that we have seen. And it also takes India's product globally. When we package it as lavender oil or as products, so it goes in every industry. It goes in the cosmetics industry, it goes in the medicinal industry, it goes everywhere. So opportunities have been created like
Also,
that.
we've kind of carved a niche for ourselves there, right?
Yeah.
So, when we become an exporter, it comes to the idea of how are we developing our supporting infrastructure, right? It not only means in terms of technology just to like have food grains and harvest them and package them, but the idea of how will you make sure that the recipients are getting it, right?
Yeah.
The transportation aspect of it, the warehousing aspect of it, there's a whole supply chain management that needs to be developed to that level. So interestingly, and much needed, India's national logistics policy was out in 2022. In fact, it's a very recent policy, but it's a very effective, and like I said, it's a need of the hour, because we are no more catering to the demands of just the country, and even if it's within the country, the length and breadth is, it's just extremes and very diverse. So how are we ensuring that what is being produced is reaching its consumer? How are we monetizing it? So the national logistics policy, apart from the idea of developing roads, transportation systems, and supporting infrastructure in that manner, it is also effectively focusing on building up warehouses
Yeah.
and digitizing these systems. When it even comes to registration, the tolls, or checking on the loans, the licensing, it's all become digitized. So the beauty of it is the records are all there, and it's all done through a like literally online. So one, your records are being tracked. Second, it's easy for you to check on your payments, how much payments done where, and because it's linked to the GST number, and a business per se is linked to a GST number and all of that, there's a clear understanding with what is done, how much work is done, from where, who's making the most of the money, where is your revenue coming in from, where are your losses, where are your profits, everything. And logistics, it's not just for your roads or even digitizing this particular segment, but interestingly, certain buildings like your convention centers and auditoriums are being recognized under national logistics policy, and they given the title of a logistical facility. And how is that related to the business or the manufacturing side? It's plainly that when you recognize an institution of that sort as a logistical facility, right, it gets certain amount of funding and recognition globally. So your trade fairs, or
And then there's a trust factor that it gets.
yeah, because it also it forms an integral part of the whole
Supply
ecosystem.
chain
Yeah, the supply chain ecosystem, right? So all your expos, trade fairs, they all become a part. It becomes connected there. But of course, it comes with its own set of perils. So there's this interesting tweak in the policy that was made. Earlier, I'm sure we had discussed this earlier. There was this limitation on the weightage of trucks
Yeah.
that could go on the road, right? So say a particular stretch of road, the a small truck, your maximum limit was say 6 tons, and the heavy load truck, the maximum limit was say 20 tons. Out of the blue, we had the Ministry of Logistics and Commerce and Trade all come together and agree that, you know what, we should probably increase the weight from 6 to 12, because that means we can transport more, right? We can transport more goods, which means more trade. We can, and there's always a dearth of supply, so we can supply more. That way, we'll make more money. And by we, I mean every other stakeholder in the logistics ecosystem. So you are truck owners and everyone. But guess what the flip side of that issue is? Like, what do you think would have gone wrong in that policy?
Overloading.
Overloading is one.
I know this other issue of road tax that happened with the vehicle weight system.
But more than that, you're close. I'll give it to you that you
Okay.
said road. But the thing was, the roads were not built for it.
Oh.
Your roads.
So we were levying tax for
No.
the roads that weren't there.
Yeah, no, and not just for that, the fact that your roads were not equipped enough to carry that much of weight. So naturally, a road that was a stretch of road that was constructed to say survive 5 years, started showing signs of torn and repair by 2.5 years or 1 year. Because you have, because also the traffic is also increased, no? The movements have also increased and the weight of the vehicles have increased. So that puts pressure on the roads, and no one anticipated that, or like when the policy was being passed. So even if you made more money, even if we collected more tax, like you said, the road tax and everything, what was the point? You had to put it back in.
Yeah, our roads basically suffered.
Yeah, so if you look, it was a nice policy. I mean, you could increase the number of transportation and everything, but it was not well thought out,
Yeah.
right? And there's so many other facets of a policy that we think doesn't really affect. Like, you increase it, it's done. No, but it affected something as basic as the road.
Yeah.
And the distance and the vehicle, and thereby the pressure on the tires, because a small load vehicle meant to carry 6 tons, suddenly you're putting 12 tons, even if it's the number of trips have reduced, the pressure on the tire remains the same, right? I mean, it's increased. So that was a very interesting thing that I read up, and national logistics policy is still very new. So 2023, I am personally interested to see what happens in the logistics arena, because when we talk about economic growth and exports, shipping, from especially Bangalore, that the city that we are in now, we are a major logistics hub. So we have operations going to all coastal areas and areas of transportation per se, where there's scope of exports. So it'll be interesting to see how that will also play out.
So you just mentioned exports, and since exports is the big buzzword in the economics of the country, RBI did a very interesting thing recently. What they did was they started invoicing payments for settlements of exports and import payments in INR.
Okay.
So like we now trade in INR and not in dollars.
Does it
So-
feels suddenly so much
And
more better to have like
It just feels like we have a lot of power suddenly. So we are settling our prices or our bills like that. But yes, it will boost our exports, and it's like it's like a hand on a shoulder on an exporter's. But how will our currency fare? That is again what we have to see in 2023. There are a lot of issues involved with that with respect to currency, because since we are doing our business in INR, it could go either ways.
also the acceptance of INR, because we know like countries like Russia, who's just recently like we've agreed to trade in for oil in Indian rupees, but would America tolerate the rupee?
That exactly is the thing, because once you start doing that and you make it a blanket thing, people will have inhibitions. By people, I mean countries or trading partners will have inhibitions. They might take a step back.
Also, it would meddle with just the idea of, see, because we're talking about the dollars coming into prominence because of the petrol and oil power, right? And how the UAE wanted to. But that's not the case today. Our dominance, or the idea of trading in INR, has come with very selective regions. So, would the value increase? Would the value decrease? Would we go back to the time when India, the currency rupee, was very stable in value? That's another thing. Is the rupee going to be stable?
That is something that
We have to.
we have to see and keep an eye on.
But would it be great if you had like a stable currency? Like, do you think we would ever achieve the kind of dominance that dollar has or a pound sterling has?
It
In a sense, what would
I don't want to be very pessimistic here, but it is. Oh, it just feels like utopia. Like you, we have accepted it. We're earning way too much through our remittances. We made a lot of money through our remittances to
the Malayali in me is so offended now?
to have INR at par with dollars. Let the dollars be where they are. But yes, we need a little more balanced currency exchange rate for sure.
Yeah.
That
Like,
is-
gone are the times where you wake up and you'll be like, 80 rupees ho gaya yaar, $1. But yeah.
Okay, let's move into health.
Mm-hmm.
So, third year anniversary of COVID era, 2022. Yes, we celebrate the lows. So, despite the whole vaccination drive and the testing centers, we have gone through that way too many times, right? Ayushman Bharat scheme was out, the Jan Aushadhi Yojana, in which they gave Ayushman cards. So basically, it's an insurance cover for 5 lakh to people of lower and middle income groups, and the card can be used by one person of a family. Like a family gets the card, and it is for covering secondary and tertiary treatments, and it covers hospital care. Very, very interestingly, it's a very nice point if we see 50% users of the Ayushman card were women in 2022. And other than that, so the scheme spreads across government hospitals and private hospitals. Obviously, it's a government hospital, they will do it, and private hospitals, we can say they're coerced to do it, right?
Also, there's a quota because of that, right?
Yeah.
The private
Yeah.
hospitals just allocate, like, say, 20 to 30%.
Yeah.
And 30% best
46%
cases.
private hospitals in India have taken this up, and they're successfully running Ayushman Bharat programs, which is again something really good to look upon.
It's very refreshing to see that.
It's very refreshing to see welfareism coming back like that in India. Also, emphasis on insurance.
Yeah, that's more important.
That is more important because now insurance has become a household discussion. When it was a privilege once for the people of higher income groups who could afford, private insurance companies and everything, now Indian government is taking it to every doorstep.
More than just insurance, I think the idea of healthcare
Yeah.
is also becoming a household topic because it has two folds. One, like you mentioned, 50% of the Ayushman card holders are women, right? Which means women healthcare is not restricted to maternity.
Yeah.
Earlier, you were concerned about a woman's health only when they are old, or B, primarily when they are in their when they're
Yeah.
giving birth, the pregnancy stage, right? And a lot of our policies are revolving around that when it comes to Anganwadis being a place of them getting folic acid tablets or nutrition for that matter. Even Asha, to an extent, revolves around the idea of making sure that pregnant women get what they need. The second part of it is that in a family also, healthcare is restricted to kids and the older people or someone who has an ailment. And that too, to an extent, after a point when the doctors say ki the very low chances of recovery or you can't afford the medication, it's almost with a heavy heart the family lets the person to die, like slowly. But and with the Pradhan Mantri Arogya Yojana, so there was this one observation in Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand which said the PM Jan Arogya Yojana, so PMJAY, was primarily utilized by the children and the women in the family because the men's healthcare was not as important, or they did not feel like it needed a doctor's attention unless it was a very serious situation like an accident or say they were diabetic or asthmatic. Otherwise, it was largely neglected. So this idea of selective medical attention was also an issue that we were facing, because how do you prioritize whose health is more important?
in the family.
And it is sad that we need to do that. That you go to the hospital, I can still put up with my issue with the medicines that I have. So this, in that sense, is a very good initiative.
True. Also, in health, we have also ushered in the sector of teleconsultation.
Mm-hmm.
We know we have private organizations like Practo, they've been running since a while, but that's not a plugin. But, yeah,
Are you a regular consumer of Practo, Parul?
maybe.
Be honest, come clean.
So, but under the PMJAY,
Hmm.
they also have started giving services of teleconsultation.
This is the Aushadhi Yojana or the Arogya Yojana?
Arogya Yojana.
Okay.
And which is very refreshing because yes, we are trying to deepen our claws in the digital sector, and we are trying to bring internet to everyone, and we're trying to bring healthcare digitally to everyone too.
Which is also good because it means we're utilizing our existing infrastructure, right? Because we're so proud that we've kind of digitalized the whole country, and
Yeah.
everyone has access to internet, the rural areas to basic internet at least. It's a So there's this project when we talk about policy implementation, right? It's called Thai Care,
Okay.
and it is implemented in the district of Tirunelveli. So they run this app. This is probably again centric on just one thing, on women who are pregnant. So again, the fallback is only those who are registered with the hospitals can be tracked, or their updates can be tracked. But the idea is that women's healthcare, the whole from the first trimester, they're being tracked. When do they need the next checkup? What are the results of their earlier scans? What do they lack? Kind of the nutrition. Who is their ASHA worker? All of those details, right? Even to an extent that complications have been identified just through these track records. And another better step is now they're trying to move that services through WhatsApp,
Okay.
which is like wow. Because I was really surprised when I saw like Amazon and Swiggy try to text on WhatsApp and give you updates about the new things, and I was like, wait,
How did they get okay, that's very personal. You're getting into my personal space now. Don't WhatsApp me.
don't WhatsApp me. That I don't. First of all, I don't respond to WhatsApp messages, and second, when you WhatsApp me, it makes me feel obligated to respond. But the that
Tell
thing
me,
aside,
did you turn your red receipts off for
let's
Swiggy and
move on to the next
Zomato?
topic. I don't want. So if you didn't get a response to your message, I probably didn't look into it. But the honest fact is, that this is happening at a district level. And because of the dearth, or not dearth, but the lack of facilities in the existing infrastructure. So what do you do about it? Sit and crib about it? No, you figure a way around to make sure that you get the services.
Yeah.
There's a dearth of, not dearth, but there's a fallback in the existing facility or infrastructure. So one way of it is to sit and crib about it. But this is a unique way of figuring out how do you access those facilities with what you have in hand. And given today's time, everyone has WhatsApp. Almost everyone has WhatsApp, at least in a household. And everyone are connected via groups. Everyone has access to some kind of internet, at least in the urban and semi-urban areas. So this is one good way of, healthcare, digitizing healthcare, right?
Yeah. So now that we are talking about digitization, India,
Revamped itself.
revamped itself, painted itself digitally this year. We launched the 5G spectrum. We had to reduce latency, high speed internet, blah blah blah, everything, and we know who is pioneering that. Let's not go there. But India ranked 40th on the Global Innovation Index. That's very refreshing. Indian scientists and researchers stand among the top 3 in the world to publish most of the research papers and experiments. So India is going very well in that direction. And when we talk about digitization, the drone rules were revised and they were passed in 2022. Drones are kind of close to me because traveling is a passion, but
Are you the reason why we have it in place, Parul?
I wish I was, but I'm not. Okay. So basically, drones were under the Ministry of Civil Aviation. So they had the same rules that guided airplanes.
Yeah.
which did not make sense. Look at an airplane and look at a drone, like a cute little object, right? But a drone has consequences. It's used for by military, by intelligence, but it's also used by wedding photographers.
The drone shot,
The
the
drone
special
shot.
drone shot, and you can hear
And
it whiz.
do you know how they're using drones these days? Like, okay, so there was this anecdote from someone. So this guy was at a shadi, a big fat Indian wedding, and they were delivering paneer tikkas through a drone.
Oh wait, this is the one that went.
Yes.
Oh god.
So drones have many uses. So drones
Also,
needed.
COVID, you know the funny. Now that you mentioned paneer tikkas, and I'm definitely hungry. But Ahmedabad, was it Ahmedabad or Mumbai? One of the two places. Ahmedabad most probably.
Ahmedabad.
It has to be Ahmedabad for this because
Yeah.
you love it. A Panwadi stall was caught, like apprehended for selling pans during the lockdown, and this was the peak of lockdown, right, where you had containment zones in every nook and corner, and no one could move out. And this guy was caught selling pan through through drones.
Yeah.
So he said it was okay. I had to like pull in a good 20K, 30K. But I had customers and I had people
So-
WhatsApping me and calling me being like, Bhaiya bhejo.
That brings us. This might be funny, but it brings us to a very serious concern.
The security aspect of it.
No, there's this other concern of e-commerce.
Oh yeah.
The thing is, people are trying to find a way around the prevailing laws, or they were, to deal with the ongoing crisis. So the government has changed the drone rules. Earlier, you needed to sign some 13 odd forms to get a permission, even to own a drone in India, and it was a very, very excruciating process. It would tire you. Now it's down to 2 or 3 forms. And the easy part is, they've launched a digital sky platform. You know what it does? It's like a video game. So you can see like wherever you are, you have to have that app in your phone. So you register with the drone ID and you have to just see the area. So are you in the green zone, yellow zone, or the red zone? Green zone means you're free to fly. Yellow means there might be some restrictions, and within 8 to 12 kilometers of an airport or a helipad, you can't fly it. And red means clearly a no-no. So that has made the process very easy. And what is the other good thing about drones is that in the new rules, any drone which weighs below 500 grams, okay, that comes under the drone policy, which means all of these things apply to that, which are very relaxed, right? And all the other drones which are above 500, they again come under the aircraft rules. They're treated like in any other airplane. Fair enough.
Which is also effective in a way rather, that when it comes to, like you said, vlogging or even for your weddings per se, the type of equipment used is not as industry heavy as something that you look at
It's like a 250-gram drone, things like that. So it gets very easy. And we also saw there were some drone deliveries done for vaccines and for COVID-19 equipment, and which was very refreshing. Obviously, we could not do it on a very large scale. It was a pilot project.
That
But that worked. A very funny thing, okay? So India, it's okay.
it hit me a little late, but
Yeah, I hope it hits our viewers at least. So, India has a very bizarre rule. It is very much related to drones. So, like I told you earlier, they were all governed under the aircraft laws of 1934. So, in India, officially, legally, flying kites and balloons is illegal because
no way.
it needs to be regulated because these objects can fly and they're unmanned.
By balloons you mean hot air balloons, right?
No. The normal party balloons. And the kites you fly on Sakrant
But-
or Raksha Bandhan.
How high would someone fly like a hot air balloon?
Yeah,
I mean a regular balloon.
You just release it.
To उसके लिए
Right.
permission, like why?
But because it could fly, you could attach a random small little camera to it probably. That was their logic. So it is like a bizarre drone fact.
how high is our threat perceivance level that we put? Imagine taking permissions for birthday parties because like sir balloons.
Balloons.
एक packet
Yeah.
खरीदे आप जरा please.
So I don't know how to feel about it.
Yeah,
but
by sir here we mean the police
this
station.
is
Okay.
on you to think about the kite regulation and let us know if you want to fly high or not. Okay. So
So if your parents go like, अरे हमारे ज़माने में we used to fly kites, be like we want to, but government
yeah,
does
or
not.
be like, तुम्हारे ज़माने में you flied kites, but that was illegal. You were breaking the law every time you would.
Fly the kite.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on from that. So another area where Indian policies got really innovative, for the good I guess, was the traffic laws
I'm worried.
and traffic monitoring system.
India and traffic does not go well together.
Yeah. But we had sneaky cameras with the traffic lights this year.
Okay.
And it was done to like to reduce the manpower on the roads and to reduce bribery and to increase transparency and accountability. Great initiative.
Also, do you know the Bangalore had this? I think it was a trial. I'm not sure if it was implemented yet, but certain parts of Bangalore had these mannequins as traffic police officers.
Yeah.
And by mannequins, I do not mean your regular dress store mannequins, but like
robotic.
Yeah. So they did have some sort of sensors, and they could catch out on the speed.
Yeah. Even in Delhi, the Lutyens Delhi area is equipped with these sensors, and oh my god,
It's kind
the
of
way challans come to your house is scary. So
Do you remember the
follow
other day? So our classmate had come with these 2-3 letters and be like, I don't even know where I did this.
Yeah.
When I did this, but I've got letters
Yeah.
and money to pay.
So the cameras remind me of a really funny story. It was all over the newspapers. So again happened in Ahmedabad. So
Had
because
to be Ahmedabad.
apparently, why is every new policy, pilot program, whatever, the first place where it gets implemented is Ahmedabad?
I don't think we need to know why.
Yeah, we know why.
Kinda know
But
the answer.
so what happened? So this guy got. So basically, what happens? You get a challan with a photograph. A married guy with kids, a family guy. Apparently, he was out with his girlfriend, and he had said that he was out on a work trip or something like that, and he had broken the signal.
I shouldn't be happy for someone's family tarnishing like this.
But so like the photograph came
Home.
home,
And the wife saw it.
and the wife saw it, like some other woman on the seat belt next to him. The couple filed for divorce. Like it became a big thing.
Follow your traffic rules. or
Follow your traffic rules.
They'll follow you
please.
home.
Or they'll follow you home. They are following you home.
And then you have questions to answer, not to your traffic police, but your
Yeah.
family members.
There was this other funny story that I suddenly remember. So there was this guy. He had a milk selling guy. The milk selling community people. They live in a certain place together.
You mean
right?
like the cooperative society people or like the community who sells milk? Like a
the
milkman,
community
doodh wala type?
on a very rural scale. The
And the-
doodh wala system. Okay. So there was some railway fatak situation there.
By Fatak, she means a railway crossing.
A railway crossing, okay, for our elite viewers. So there was a railway crossing, and there was some signal there where you could not cross it. This poor guy did not know, illiterate, etc., okay, and every week he used to get a challan. He could never understand why this is happening. He could never figure it out, and it became a huge amount after a while. This poor fellow was just taking his cycle across, and you were not allowed to do that in that zone. So, as funny as this might be, this is a very big loophole in our implementation. We introduce revolutionary steps in our policy,
But communication?
but communication is not there. Who will tell the people?
Yeah.
2022 saw great policies, if I have to say, revolutionary. They were not communicated properly. That leads to distress. And that is another takeaway from this year if we had to look at policies.
Yeah, it kills the whole purpose of having a policy in the first place, right? Because so there was this one way that Bangalore traffic police had adopted when helmets became mandatory for the pillion riders. And this was the story of one signal, and I personally love that signal. Like, if I was ever so jobless in life, that is one place that I would want to sit from morning till night.
And that is?
This signal called Jaragnali Circle.
Okay.
And they had a traffic police hub there. And it's one huge intersection and it has 4 different roads, and one side's the JP Nagar Metro, and the other side's towards Banshankari, and the other side's towards JP Nagar 7th and 8th phase, and all of that. It's basically a connecting point, right? And this guy on the mic, this traffic police officer on the mic, he goes out he'll just call out every single person he sees in that signal who's not worn his helmet. And it's not even like he'll walk there. He's gonna sit in that corner of that road and shout into the mic, because first of all...
Oh, they have access to mics these days.
They have mics, and it's huge speakers, and he's just like, "Hey, you red shirt, where's your helmet?" And this guy is like, "Me?" And and then he goes on with adjectives, and quite creative ones. But the thing is, that is also a way of communicating that, hello, there's something in place, and why you're not following it. And that is a kind of intervention that we need to think about, that how do you communicate the policy, and what are the repercussions of not following it or not implementing it right. Do you shame them? Do you appreciate them for following it?
So what happened once in my hometown, so I think it happened in 2020 when the new fines and the fines were revised again for, tripling or not wearing a seat belt or a helmet. So the fines were huge.
Yeah.
Like, you would rather give up on your scooty than pay the fine.
Yeah.
It was like that, okay? So what happened was, the traffic police people of that area, they started handing over roses to the offenders.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
A token of appreciation.
A token of a very weird reinforcement tactic where you very politely shame someone.
Yeah.
Listen, there's this rose for you because you're a fool. For not, did you get it?
I definitely got it.
Because you're a fool for not following the traffic rules. And also it was, how they justified it was, traffic rules are for your own benefit.
Yeah.
Take care of your health. So here's a flower for you. Keep yourself safe. It was like that.
But we're so deep. There's this Andhra police cop, and I think it's an image that went viral around the same time, 2020s to 2022s. There's this family, so they organized this traffic police rules classes for offenders in that particular week.
Okay.
And there's this one family that came because it was literally 4 or 5 members on a bike. So the papa, mommy, and 3 kids. Attended the classes, signed, coffee, tea, and all. They leave, and this officer also leaves for his duty. 1 kilometer off, he is mortified. And all he had the guts to do is just remove his cap, do a namaskar, and be like, "Aap mahan ho." Guess what the family did?
Again.
And it was a sight because you felt bad for that Pulsar bike, man. It was like literally 5 members. The kid in the front is literally sleeping.
The pulsar was pulsating real bad. Something is up with me.
I like, give me oil. I wanna die. Yeah, it was so, and you could see, it's not like they were having a comfortable ride, which is the sad part of our economy, that people can't afford transportation or make sure that only 2 people travel on a bike and the remaining come in another mode of transportation. What do they do when they don't have money? But the point is, people are foregoing the safety aspect of it. Like, is it safe for me to do it? You're having a child literally, like, lying down on your bike so that people can squeeze in the back and sit. That's really compromising on your own
Yes.
safety and
Yeah.
others also, right? So these are certain interesting.
That again
You
leads
have a
us
story?
to no leads us to I have a segue. It leads us to education. So the whole thing around awareness and everything also comes from education,
Mhm.
and that is a sweet segue into how India fared in terms of education policy. We have a very, very, very vast education system with over 15 lakh schools all across India, government schools,
Okay.
97 lakh teachers, and around 26 crore students. That is huge if you look at it. And given that context, the NEP came out this year,
Yoo-hoo.
the beautiful, the
National
complicated national education
Education.
policy. It affects us and almost all of the.
It affects everyone around you.
It actually affects everyone, even if you have a child. It affects you as a parent.
Or not. Because
Yeah.
it'll affect the employment sector.
Yeah. So NEP is a very beautiful example of how the economic needs of a country. India's economic needs were boost exports. How the economic needs of a country
Are reflected in these.
are translated to an education policy when you put emphasis on skill development. Because we need skilled labor, we need skilled people, if not labor, to boost the manufacturing in India and to make India a hub. So that was a very beautiful, in sync process that we saw in the policy making this year. And if you have to talk about NEP a little, so NEP basically it changed the way Indian education system worked slightly, and students now have the choice to choose their own combination of subjects. Then they have the liberty to drop out of college if they have a family emergency or whatever. And then there's a thing called a credit bank.
Yeah.
So whatever years of education you have already completed, it will
Stay
not go
there.
to waste. It will stay with you in a bank, which I think is very revolutionary.
Because
And 1 minute, and it also gives you an opportunity to restart it. It gives you that hope that the life of my education is not done. I can restart it. Okay, I had a family emergency, I need to give up on education, I will be able to do it. So it motivates you in some
that'll
ways.
be a good, huge leap for, I think, women in higher education, especially.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, we should be looking at a situation where any individual in our country should be able to complete their education and then take on other priorities. But we're also growing in a society where often when it comes to a marriageable age,
Yeah.
education can still happen. You get married first, and then you see people never going back to education.
Yeah.
Now you have inspiring stories of women in their 50s and late 60s completing education, but they've started from scratch,
Yeah, again.
right?
So this gives them, the NEP gives them that motivation
Also, I
and
think
that safety net.
that is also a good way to seek employment, because I may have not completed my education that way, or like as a whole 3-year degree, but I've definitely completed the first year, and due to some circumstances,
And it comes to you as a diploma, and you still
Yeah.
have something in your hand
it's
to show.
still a validation of the efforts that you've put into
Exactly,
it, right?
exactly. And this also, like there was this Mission Shakti that was launched in 2022, which emphasized on women-led development, which emphasized on women education, their employment in every sphere,
And empowerment
and
in general.
empowerment in general, and that also falls in line with our G20 agenda for
Yeah.
this year, for our leadership year.
Women-driven development.
Women-driven development. So policy in education, I guess, has fared well.
It's fair. It's going towards a better direction than we expected
Yeah.
it to be. It's more nuanced. It's more progressive. At the same time, there are definitely drawbacks to it, like the going debates about the syllabus, right? The curriculum of education. How do you value these assessment patterns and all of that? These are it is definitely a long way to go, but it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah. So Next, if we talk about quickly, if we talk about what happened in the agriculture sphere of India. So India, this in 2022, we had the highest food grain production. Like we produce around 315 million tons of food grains,
Okay.
which like we had a major surplus this year. But yes, we had policies of fixed MSP for both Kharif and Rabi crops, and everything was there. It was nice, beautiful. PM Kisan. That's an old scheme. Great. But you know, I came across something really funny. So, we're all aware of the locust attack that happens
Oh yeah.
in Punjab, and it was like massive a year ago when it came all when it was all across the western belt of India. So it mostly happens in Punjab, Delhi, and it flows through that region, goes to UP. That's the route of the
And
locust.
it's an annual thing, I guess, right? Because I remember
It's an
during the
insect,
lockdown
yeah.
too, it was like
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
huge.
It was like a huge deal. So there's an actual law, a policy under the Punjab State Government Pest Control Act.
I'm really shaking my head at this point, but go on.
Yeah, so there's this very cute law where it's cute, like
Not for the farmers, but go ahead.
no. So basically, so it's for the people of Delhi. Whenever you see an incoming locust attack or you spot a locust, you have to beat the drums to alarm the authorities. I don't know how that works out. Are they providing drums to every household in Delhi?
No, wait.
And like, what are you doing? Like,
I've not stated
I'm
Delhi.
still, I've still not digested beating plates.
That's
And-
a whole different validation conversation, Parul. No. But I've not stayed in Delhi, but I've been there enough and heard about it enough from you that it's a very noisy place.
Yeah.
अब ढोलक बजा के कैसे मतलब लोगों को बुलाएंगे?
Yeah, and like I am like at the cost of being very stereotypical here. You can't play drums in Delhi and not expect everyone to break out into bhangra.
Yeah, you like play drums here. I'm gonna break out a dance right here, right?
And like look at the locals. Locals will also come dancing.
But I think it is to do with the vibrations. If we were
Yeah.
to look at, but again, it's a very regressive.
It's something.
How do you expect it to? And that is what I'm trying to figure out is in a rural, not even a rural setup, but in a very locality-based setup. I get it. It draws attention to
Yeah.
these authorities or whoever, but that's not a long-term feasible solution, right?
Yeah.
And just offering fixed prices on the crops are not going to help with it, or fertilizer kind of exemption subsidies are not going to help with it. Subsidies are not going to help with it. Protection from such pests and such climatic conditions are also a need of the hour.
Also, widening the span of or widening the cover of crop insurance is what
Yeah.
our policy need is right now. We have crop insurance, but it's not as widespread as it needs to be.
With respect to land holdings,
Yeah.
because where do farmers with small land holdings go?
Yeah.
And especially with locust attacks, they are at more risk of losses than
yeah.
farmers with large land holdings and better access to water. Actually speaking, 2022, we shouldn't be really discussing the topic of accessibility to water for farmers, because if you look at history, we've laid out enough plans to ensure that that doesn't happen, but it's still an issue. So how much ever we are at mirth about the locusts being warded off by drums, it's still a point for us to think about.
Yes. So that's exactly the thing. Like everything is a point of concern here. We just are.
I think we like one step at a time,
Yeah.
and we're trying to put our instead of just investing in one particular area or developing one particular section, we're trying to focus on all the other sectors as well.
Yeah.
Like if I have 10 sectors, I'm trying to make sure that all the 10 sectors move ahead at the same time. So probably why certain policy implementations are vague or
Yeah.
ineffective. The policy in its very core would be interesting or nice
Yeah.
and genuinely intended towards the right direction, But yeah.
What do you think? We had this great campaign in India called the Swachh Bharat mission. So, how do you think that did in 2022? Like, what were the highs and lows?
Swachh Bharat, for me, I think always first reminds me of a toilet.
Hmm.
And because hygiene is such an issue in India,
Hmm.
and be it be in a public space or in a private space, the fact that there are households that still do not have access to toilets
Hmm.
are alarming, right? And we came up to open defecation free
Hmm.
regions and
Yeah.
villages. Panchayat really highlighted that, like,
Yeah.
that particular concept, and the very implementation difficulties at the grassroots level. So when you think of a background like that, and even if you talk about in the urban spaces, just segregating waste is seen as such a
Is a
task.
headache, yeah.
And how does governing bodies make money out of it, or how do they
Mhm.
ensure that it happens in the right time?
Also, reutilization
Yeah.
of that water.
How does it all work is something that each state has to figure out for their own, right? And Indore, for that is, I think that is the highlight for me.
Yeah,
Like when you look, there's just gloom everywhere about
Hmm.
how dirty our streets are, and how there's always, there's always an open diaper in the middle of the road,
Yeah.
or like food thrown around and all of that. But Indore, for the sixth consecutive time, has won the cleanest city in the country award.
Hmm.
And it's a very interesting model of how they've done it. Okay, so they figured out the amount of waste that they have, say around 1000 to 1200 tons approximate, and they figured out collection points.
Okay.
And their safai karmacharis work for three shifts a day in waste collections.
And they are in rotation, right?
They are in rotations across the day.
So employment
Mm-hmm.
and cleanliness.
Cleanliness. And the frequency is also increased
Okay.
of waste collection. So, I mean, probably from the households you collect once a day. But like when you look at a public space wise, if you look at a park or a road or a junction, which gets littered pretty quickly, it's cleaned efficiently, right? And it's collected, all of these wastes, they segregated into your basic dry waste and wet waste. And then from these collection points, they're taken to 8 different segregation units in the city. And from there, the waste is segregated into 6 parts. So, even in your wet waste, you have a subdivision. Like your sanitary napkin would go into a different
Yeah.
waste, food peels and waste would go into another
Yeah.
one. And then they are decomposed and whatever, disposed, etc. So they've set up disposal units accordingly. And the beauty of this is about 14.45 crore rupees was raised by the municipal corporation with waste disposal,
Wow, that's a lot.
which is a very good source of
Hmm.
income for municipal bodies.
Yeah.
Because we talk about how municipal corporations are not getting enough funds from the center,
And that was very smart.
and it gives so much more liberty to the local government bodies, right? They have that resource at their disposal to make the city better, so you can develop a better infrastructure to reduce the waste consumption. Like, it's a decent self-sustaining model.
Also, I read that they were also successful in reusing the waste water
Yeah.
in other plants.
Yeah.
So that is again another sustainability story linked with cleanliness, linked with employment generation and fund generation at the
And
same time.
innovation and technology.
Innovation, like Indore, points for you.
Yeah, I mean, this is you've really shown how it's done.
Yeah,
like,
you've paved the way.
paved the way, and it's something that we all have to learn, that we are, as states, as municipal corporations, we crib about how much funds are not allocated, or some states are generating high revenues and funds, but they are not being allocated a similar ratio from the center. It's time we start thinking like this.
Yeah, it's time we go innovative.
Yeah.
So, while we have this great success story from India, there's a story from Switzerland. Okay. And it came out pretty recently. It saw the light. Like the law was there, but like people got to know about it. People started talking about it more openly. of late. So, the Switzerland law says that you can't flush your toilets post 10 p.m.
Okay.
because flushing the toilet
Is
in
noise
their
pollution.
policy equals to noise pollution.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Oh God.
good luck staying in Switzerland. And in that contrast, to be very honest, I feel so proud of of cities like Indore. And for whatever our country has achieved till date, we're at least not stopping flushing of toilets. Our sanitation levels are much better.
Yeah, it's a sanitation nightmare, man.
Yeah,
I don't even want to think about it.
yeah. So there was this another great, interesting, innovative thing that happened in the energy sector.
Yeah.
So we know we have a huge oil dependency
Mm-hmm.
right now on Russia. Most of our oil needs are
Met by
imported,
Russia, yeah.
and we just import oil. So what the bill passed in 2022 that we will be mixing 20% ethanol in our petroleum.
Okay.
So how that would help us is that 20% would be extra, right?
Mm-hmm.
For every gallon if you
Mm.
if you measure it like that. So in a way we will end up saving on some petroleum, which will reduce our dependency to some amounts. So this is scientifically a very bold step which has been taken.
Mm-hmm.
It has been proven, and it has good results. So that was another policy, like I would say a bold policy taken by the ministry, because in sectors like this you have a risk of being scientifically incorrect, or you know
Or
making the wrong chemical formula, or
and
going
lateral,
towards a disaster.
yeah, lateral repercussions,
Yeah.
right? Because
So, but this one appears to be bold, but we're yet to see how it gets implemented. And in some cities and in few petrol pumps, they are selling the mixed petrol now.
Mhm.
Until now, it has shown no side effects, like no ill effects of that. So that is positive sign that we should be looking forward to.
but that's very recent, right?
It's very recent. It's like
So
very fresh.
it will take a while for us to understand the pollution levels reduced or increased thereof.
This should reduce the
And
pollution levels.
How
and,
will affect our vehicles as well?
yeah.
Because the vehicles are not crafted to something of that sort. So such a policy
So,
change.
this policy change was backed with a lot of scientific research.
Mm-hmm.
So, I am assuming, they researched on how the vehicles would react to it,
Mhm.
and then it got, pushed forward.
Mhm.
Then it got accepted. So, they have a target of 2025. Till then, they want to achieve 100% blending of ethanol in petrol. So, with that, I think we've covered almost all the major sectors that are in the policy space in India, considering the economic side, health, education, energy, transportation,
Yeah, digitalization. Yeah.
sanitation. So it was an interesting year, a rather adventurous one. So what do you have to say?
No, I just feel like it's been very momentous, right? There's so many big wins, and subsequent losses, places where we had to really rethink about which direction we're going in, what are the kind of associations we want to have with when we import oil from Russia, what kind of statements are we making, and what does it talk about our internal situation, all of that. But see, we hit a policy, I mean, globally we've hit a population of 8 billion, right? It'll be interesting to see how the same situation of food shortage, lack of energy, or say oil, pollution, climate change, and then healthcare for the population that is in our country. All of these, how will it be impacted in this year?
Yeah.
And we are kind of anticipating another wave of the COVID, and the war is still on with
Yeah.
Russia and Ukraine. So it'll be really interesting to see 2023, what have we learned from 2022,
And what are the changes you're willing to make?
and what are we carrying forward?
Yeah.
So that's 2022 wrap up of policies at India. We'll see you again in the next episode where we will see our predictions, our thoughts, our hopes, our prayers, and ambitions for 2023. Till then, see ya.